Aloha, welcome to the Live Ukulele podcast. My name is Brad Bordessa. Thanks for being here. This episode features an interview with Uncle Kimo Hussey, one of my favorite sit-downs in quite a while, and got to cross this off the list at Uncle George Kahumoku Jr.'s Slack Key and Ukulele workshop this year, back in June, I guess it was. Cool interview, lots of great things that Uncle Kimo shared. Can't wait to share it with you folks. But before we begin, a couple of notes. I have a workshop coming up via Zoom on August 24th. It's going to be at 10 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time, and we're going to be talking about solo arranging, kind of the fundamentals and the basics of creating that illusion of two ukuleles playing together, one playing the melody, one playing the harmony. So we'll talk about, work through a couple of different songs, talk about how you place the melody in a place that can make this possible, and how to place the chords appropriately around that melody, how to get everything to work together. So if you're maybe an intermediate player and you want to get started with solo arranging, some people call it fingerstyle playing, but kind of doing all the parts on one instrument solo, that to me, I call it solo arranging. And that is what we're going to be talking about. August 24th at 10 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time, we're going to meet up on Zoom. If you can't make the Zoom, you can still register anyways and get access to the replay video, which I will upload ASAP when the workshop is done. You can learn more via the link in the podcast description or head over to liveukulele.com/store and you'll see it right at the top there. I hope you can join us. It should be a fun time. We'll talk kind of for an hour-ish about the different concepts regarding solo arranging, and then I'll kind of open it up for folks to ask questions. We can talk about kind of what you're reflecting on from the lesson or other questions that might have come up hearing what I was talking about, presenting about. Should be fun. Check out the link, and I will see you there. If you're not already, you should definitely sign up for my newsletter. I have just recently kind of reinvented my welcome series and also a forever series that goes out to folks who have just joined the newsletter. And I believe if you resubscribe, you should be re-added to that workflow. It's a handful of kind of fretting tips and just the very fundamentals of actually pressing notes and getting good sounds on the instrument. It's a week of that to get you started. And then I've also got a monthly kind of resource reminder, we'll call it, where I kind of highlight one aspect of the Live Ukulele website or the podcast or some piece of free content that I create and share that with you folks with a little bit of context and maybe ways that you can use it, ways that I think that it can help people. You can join the newsletter by going to liveukulele.com/sign up, no hyphen, and putting your email in the form there. It's a great way to stay in touch in addition to the scheduled emails that you'll automatically get. I also try to send out monthly reminders and kind of news updates of what's going on here in Live Ukulele World, some of the new content that I am creating and other things that I think are interesting. My guest today is a very early inspiration of mine for ukulele. He's somebody who really kind of changed my perspective of how to approach the instrument and helped me realize that there are a bunch of styles that you can bring to the instrument. And just because you kind of come from one school doesn't mean that you can't switch gears to get a very different sort of sound and a sort of different approach. So I met Uncle Kimo Hussey back in 2007 or 2008 at the Kahumoku Ohana Music and Lifestyle Workshop. It was an abridged workshop, kind of just a weekend, long weekend kind of a thing instead of the full week. And none of us students had really heard of Uncle Kimo before, but he got there and we heard him play, and we were immediately taken by what he is able to do on an ukulele, because his style is very different and I guess very mature. I mean, he was, he kind of came to ukulele. He didn't come to the instrument later in life because he's been playing forever, but sort of came to his career in ukulele a little bit later in life, which you'll hear about. So he was like kind of was like established as an entire ukulele package. He just really had this thing that he was good at and that he presented very well. And we were all very struck by that and taken by that. And he took great pains to share his style with us and to sit us down and really help mentor us with what we were working on as, kids and young artists on the way up. And I remember very vividly his sheet. I think I have it somewhere stored away because it was revolutionary. We sat down for a private lesson, and I think we had an hour or something together. And he was like, said something to the effect of, I'm going to make this sheet for you, and we're going to put everything that you need to play music on this page. And there was some theory stuff, and like, here are, the main chords you're going to play in a given key, or da-da-da-da-da, that kind of thing. But what I remember most was the fact that he separated the left hand from the right hand. It's like, you practice the left hand, then you practice the right hand, and then, and only then, do you put them together. And that really stuck with me because it's very easy to get overwhelmed with the coordination of both hands at the same time, trying to make a sound happen or some sort of expression happen on the ukulele. And he was like, no. You do it separately first, and you start with that. So he showed us his kind of thumb, index finger strumming style, where he kind of plucks the strings more so than most ukulele players. It's more like a brush. He brushes on the strings, and some brushes are thumb brushes downwards, some are index finger brushes upwards. He details a lot of this in his YouTube videos. If you go check out Uncle Kimo's YouTube channel, I'll be sure to put that in the podcast description. But it's kind of it's a unique style. Not a whole lot of people play that way. Certainly not anymore. It might have been more of kind of an old school thing. I don't believe we got into the origins of his like physical approach to playing the ukulele. But we cover a lot of other ground, and I'm very, very pleased that I had the chance to sit down and talk with Uncle Kimo on the record, on the mics for the podcast. He's a total wealth of knowledge, and one of very few people you run across who seem to like have it all figured out. He has the air of having everything all figured out already. And so, you don't often see that, even with kind of the uncles who have been doing music forever. And I don't know, Uncle Kimo just has this he has kind of that sage feel about him. Is this, guru type of guy who just really has a strong sense of how everything works together and is willing to share that and help people work through things on their own, but to guide them through that by asking the right questions and, forcing you to kind of think about things. Why is this important? Why would you do that? And our interaction that week at Uncle George's workshop, now that, I'm on the teaching roster and Uncle Kimo is on the teaching roster, we kind of had a little bit different relationship, but he was still challenging me to think about things differently and like, okay, what are you working on? How can I help you? And how are you going to achieve these things that you want to do? And really making me think. And I really appreciated that about our time together, beyond this interview. But anyways, without further ado, here is Uncle Kimo Hussey as we spoke in my hotel room at Napili Kai on Maui back in June. Please enjoy. This is a real treat and a wealth of knowledge. Uncle Kimo Hussey.
So it just is going to be your direction.
Okay. Well, it strikes me that when we first met in Pahala many years ago, that you were one of the first ukulele players that I met who was bringing kind of unconventional teaching in new ways to the ukulele. Maybe we start with, your background and how you got into the ukulele, and maybe up to how you started thinking about teaching differently than other ukulele players.
Got it. First of all, I started playing the ukulele almost 75 years ago. When I first started, just like everybody else in Hawaii, it was, especially to a youngster, a kid, it was a toy. And at some point in elementary school, I realized that I had an interest in music. And probably for that reason, I really enjoyed kanikapila. Because in those days, kanikapila was, and it's not as if it's not fun today, but I learned music and grew up in music and Hawaiian music and ukulele through kanikapila. And the thing about kanikapila in those days, and to a certain degree even today, was that it was anything but academic. More often, the kanikapilas weren't even planned; they were not scheduled. Some of my friends or family or cousins, came home from school, get together to play just for fun. Sometimes family would come, get together, play just for fun. And it was through one of these kanikapila, my uncle specifically, who first taught me to play, started me on the ukulele when I was 5. So throughout junior high school and high school, I always had an interest in music and ukulele. By the time I got into high school, I appreciated the ukulele, but was playing more guitar because I wanted to do something other than ukulele. Not because I was tired of ukulele, but I wanted to expand. There's a difference between being like burned out of a procedure or playing an instrument. As opposed to wanting to expand. And my choice for expansion was several. Especially in high school, I started playing guitar. When I was in the 6th grade, where I lived, some people started a drum and bugle corps. And at the time, I was a bugler. Did not know why I was having problems. So because in that situation I wasn't enjoying playing the bugle during the breaks, I'd go hang around the drummers. And I got interested in drums. So in the 7th grade, I got into band to play drums. And it wasn't until the 8th grade or beyond that I figured out that the problem I was having with the bugle was the mouthpiece that I was using was too big. It's the first time I realized that there were sizes of mouthpieces to improve your embouchure. So anyway, in the 7th grade, I played drums, and in the 8th grade, I tried out for the high school band in drums, and did that. In the 9th grade, tired of drums, so I decided, I'm going to continue or go back to singing. Because in the 7th and 8th grade, I was in the choir in junior high school. So in the 9th grade, I decided to get back to singing in choirs. Did that all through high school and had some very, very rich musical experiences. Ended up after graduation, high school, going to the same college that my high school teacher went to. Studied with the person that he studied with, and that was choral conducting. Because I was very, very I liked religious music and choirs. So it seemed like taking a major in choral conducting was the way to go. So I did that, wanting eventually to come home and teach music in high school. Probably more so in hindsight than anything else. I think one of the wonderful things about teaching in schools is that you get to start new every year. As opposed to having a number of years to develop, which is good, but it's not that way. With schools. And so I learned from that it's okay to start new. And just because you start new doesn't mean that you cannot have quality in the music that you do. So went off to college, got a degree in choral conducting, went off to graduate school before I come home to teach, and I didn't finish graduate school because I ran out of money and went to work. And in those days, if you went to work, you got drafted. And rather than be drafted, I decided to try and do something, anything, that would preclude lobbing poison arrows at other people. I don't mind lobbing a poison arrow at like a building or something that's inanimate, because that can rebuild. But shooting real bullets at people just kind of bothered me. Fortunately, I didn't have to do that. Ended up in the Air Force and really loved that career. And when I retired, wanted to get back into music. And so I started trying to figure out how to get back into music, because I had just retired. I didn't want to get back into choirs, because there were too many people you had to coordinate with to get to practices, rehearsals, and concerts, that kind of thing. And so I thought, I should revive playing my ukulele. So I decided this was the right thing to do, because the biggest reason was, after 30 years of Uncle Sam's bureaucracy, I decided that I really liked the idea of working for and by myself. So I did. And I have absolutely no regrets. And thank God every day that I made that decision, because ukulele has been very, very wonderful for me. And despite the fact that I've been playing now ukulele for as long as I have, and still love it, because there's always something to learn. And one of the important things that I have learned is I'll never run out of things to do or learn or share with people, and I like that. There.
Wow. So how did you come to your teaching style? Did that develop after you retired, or was that something that you just kind of put on hold? Has that been there the whole time?
Teaching style. Okay, let me think about that. Okay. I get asked a lot about my teaching style, because evidently it's so unique, and I don't know how unique my teaching style is, because I generally don't teach with other people, except for Zanuck Lindsay. My friend Zanuck Lindsay is one of the very best musicians I know, and one of those very few outstanding musicians who can also teach very well. So anyway, when I decided on ukulele, what I did was take the things that I had learned about music in general from a major in choral conducting, and apply what I could to ukulele. The other thing I think is, at the time, I learned, because at one point when I was very young in college, I wanted to be an entertainer. And I went to school in Southern California, which is close to Hollywood. So I thought, man, I need to get my name in lights. and it quite didn't work out that way. So I revived playing ukulele. At the same time, I took those things, mostly things that had to do with music theory, applied them to ukulele as best I could, so that they would be relevant. And as a result of that, developed what people like you call my style of playing. But at the time when that was sort of kind of baking, I decided that, okay, I'm retired. And fortunately, I didn't have to go to ukulele to make a living, which is a big thing. So I decided, okay, the next thing I need to do is get famous, because if I got famous, then people would start calling me to come entertain and share ukulele, do workshops, and that has worked, and I can tell you exactly how that worked for me. First of all, probably most importantly, at the time when I was doing this, Jake was on his way up. And I remember the first couple times I went to see him, because I decided, if I'm going to try and be famous, I better be good. so I went to watch and listen to guys play. One of them was Jake. And the thing that impressed me about his playing at the time was his speed. I couldn't believe hands could move that fast. And so I thought, ooh, this guy is really famous. So how can and I cannot copy him because he's younger than I, which means he's faster than I. And I told him a couple times, as you age, you ain't getting faster. So I decided to play opposite. I started playing slow. And then as the younger kids kept coming, like Calais and all those guys, I noticed they all played fast. So I played slow, and basically, it's not a matter of going against. It's a matter of providing something different, because what I learned is when I slowed down and softened my music, slow and softer, slower and softer, people loved it. So I decided, this is good. This is going in the right direction. So now the next step was deciding how I was going to afford all of this. Because I wasn't interested in paying to travel. I was interested in getting paid. So, and sometimes it even worked. So I decided then, and I'm glad I did, that I needed to focus not on a young audience. That's what all the kids were doing. Focus on young audiences. I decided to focus on middle-aged and retired people. Why? Because I thought being middle-aged and retired, those are the people that had money and time. And so what I did was I learned to play on my ukulele songs from that era. And that era is folk music, early pops, some Beatles stuff, but even earlier than Beatles, because it was pointed toward the audience that I wanted to teach. The next thing was, because I was retired, I decided not to play real complicated. Why? Because a long time ago, I developed what I call my percentage rule. And my percentage rule was, and the percentages change. But if, let's say, I decided that my next concert, I was going to use a 20% rule, and that is, I look out at the audience, and I take a look at about 20% of them, and I ask myself, can you teach these people to play the song? One or two songs that I chose in the concert. And I did that. And people loved it. And because of that, I became known. And the phone rang a lot, and there are lots of things on the internet. So I think, this is cool. And so, as I continued on to retirement, I enjoyed very much doing that because everything I did was just like this event, for this week. I mean, it was so fun. It was lots of fun people, lots of people who were really like fun to be around. Lots of experience, like, having guys like you and other people come to share your interest and talent in music and ukulele or guitar, whatever you do. And I thought, oh, this is great. And so I kept doing it all the way up to right now when I'm doing it with you.
Wow. I'm surprised that you had such a plan. I think that is an interesting, because it feels like as a younger artist slash teacher slash guy who likes to play music, that it's been a lot of flying by the seat of my pants.
Oh, I'm very familiar with that.
Okay.
But that's a good comment, because I really love to teach. And that organization, more than anyone or anything else that taught me how to teach like I do, was the Air Force. And the reason for that, I think, was that I was a pilot. And as a pilot in any military service, when you need to learn something, you need to learn it. You can't wait, you can't take more time. You just got to figure out how to learn it. And once you become operational in any military organization, goals are really important. So, for example, if you can't get an airplane off the ground without knowing where you're going to go, and so that stuck. And how that has helped me with ukulele was what you were talking about. You seem to have had this thing in plan, pom 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 pom, and yes, because I was freshly retired from the military, so I had some very, very specific goals. Not really difficult ones to attain. And fortunately, I had been playing the ukulele for a long time. So even though it has been a long time that I've played the uke, I still love it. And the number one reason for that is there's always something to learn. And I know now that I'll never, ever learn it all. So I'm out there trying to grab as much as I can.
So have you spent much time performing? Because I noticed watching you teach that despite the military background, it doesn't feel like your classes are structured. It feels like you're there to share in a nice experience with folks, and it's almost a performance that you're bringing them along.
That's correct. And the answer to your question was yes, I've performed a lot. But one of the things I've learned about performance and teaching and traveling gets back to this thing about speed with young people. As people mature, let's get more specific. As ukulele players mature, those who enjoy not only performance but teaching, after a while, their style, in my estimation, has to change. It has to. Because as we mature, one of the things we talk about is, people don't get faster. So what you have to do is make some change in the way you play to accommodate that. Traveling is extremely grueling. And so if I want to maintain the kind of schedule that I enjoy maintaining with travel, I not only have to take care of my body, I also have to make changes. For example, when I was younger, like yesterday, I was younger than today. But anyway, when I was younger, I traveled, I could stay awake longer and just be okay the next day. I can't do that now. And I need to respect that. And so what that means is when I travel very far, I ask that the first full day that I'm there, that that nothing gets assigned for me to do, and all I do is rest. And one of the things I have learned about me in travel is that rest is the most important thing I need. So I respond to that. getting back to speed, what I do is continually change my repertoire to accommodate what I can do. And the way I look at that is not from the standpoint of me slowing down. I look at it as always being at the top of my game. There, buddy, take that.
Such good stuff. You have a deep background in Hawaiian music and Hawaiian style playing of music. People come here from many places in the world, and they all appear here. They learn from the greats, but a lot of times they're disappointed that I learned the notes. Why doesn't it sound Hawaiian? What do you think makes something sound Hawaiian? I've been asking this question a lot because I don't have a good answer, and I'm curious.
A couple things. Number one is to understand, I think, that what we perceive, and we as other ukulele players, like in a group like we have here, what we perceive to be Hawaiian music is not ethnically Hawaiian music. It is drawn from hymns. It is drawn from hymnals. And so with those hymns, especially the Protestant hymns, they're very, very simple. 1, 4, and 5 chords. Very basic but beautiful harmonies. This is why a lot of the local people take to making wonderful harmonies. They're all simple. And so the essence, to me, of Hawaiian music is simplicity. Simplicity, simple to me, means don't overdo things like volume. Don't overdo things like speed. Because what that does when you do that, and some people do this on purpose, is to excite the audience. Is to excite the audience by trying to generate a lot of adrenaline. Because when we get going, adrenaline, and it's not a bad thing, it needs to be controlled. But when it's out of control, people start banging on their ukes, and going a lot faster than they need to, and completely do not realize that there's a lot of Hawaiian music that's intended to be of a moderate speed at fastest, because Hawaiian music does not have as much instances of frustrated love as some other forms of music. Hawaiian music, and it's not completely bereft of that, it's just not as much in my estimation. A lot of Hawaiian music has to do with celebrating a place, a person, something that's positive. The other thing about Hawaiian music is, played correctly, it is very simple. One of the things that people do to try and endear an audience to them is make things a lot more complicated than it needs to be. What do I mean by that? Transposing to 4 or 5 different keys in the same song, playing too long, playing too fast, things like that. The other thing is the performers. The performers need to understand if the purpose of their playing is to entertain or to teach. Huge difference between the two. In addition to that, the performers need to figure out the difference between pleasing an audience and trying to make that audience appreciate your talents as a player. In teaching, for example, it's way more important to teach to the people and not try and convince the audience that you're with that you teach well, you play well, and because of that, they should listen to what you're telling them. And so it's not as if players and entertainers, and even Kimo Hussey doesn't go astray of that sometimes. We do, but generally, I try to be aware if I'm trying to teach or I'm trying to entertain. And as I get older and older, I enjoy more teaching. So I like to share. Hence, things like my 30% rule comes sometimes as like my 50% rule. But I notice that people appreciate that when you do something that they appreciate or they like very much. It's the reason why I don't write, I don't compose. I don't enjoy that. I enjoy arranging, but I don't compose. And I like to play songs that I think people will recognize, because it establishes a communication, not with me and the audience, but with the music and the audience, because what I want them to think about is not me. And I know what they're thinking about is going back in history to the time when they first learned and sang those songs, and why it continued, and the resulting positive emotion that came out of that. That's what they remember. And so sometimes, sometimes I'll play an old song, and people are so unaccustomed to hearing that on the ukulele, especially played instrumentally, that they applaud. And I'm going, what? But it's all a matter of doing it for the people, and that's how I like to share, because I don't need to convince people that I'm very good, and I don't I just don't need to be a popular guy. I don't need to be number one, the number one player in people's minds. I just enjoy what I'm doing, especially on things like this. So really, I think that part of it gets back to goals, really recognizable goals. There, buddy.
So arranging, what do you do when you approach a song to arrange it? Do you break it down by left hand, right hand, or are you talking like musically what you're doing with the song arranging?
Basically, as many different things as I can consider, because all of the above is a good response. But the real answer is as many things to consider. For example, I play a lot instrumentally, so I don't sing a lot. Now, Hawaiian music is so simple that the melodies are extremely simple, and some are very short. And the way that people who enjoy Hawaiian music enjoy variety is through the lyrics. But if I choose to play something instrumental, there are no lyrics. So I got to figure out how to make it interesting. Transposition, modulating, change keys, playing songs on the ukulele that people aren't accustomed to listening, and sometimes taking a song straight on. A song like Loko Maikai, Amazing Grace, that goes slow. Slow music for an ukulele player is tough. It is very, very difficult. But when you do it, people appreciate it because it's so different. So the basic answer to your question is I try to be different and good at the same time.
And
I'm sorry?
How far do you think you can push a song arrangement-wise before it becomes something that's a little too much? Where do you find the line?
If it becomes something that's too much, it's your fault. I don't... a lot of times I'll play the same song for years, but every single time I pick that uke to play that song, there's something different. Even if it's really small or short, there's something different. Because I need I need to make sure that I personally am motivated, in what I'm doing, and I just don't let it be automatic, because it'll never be automatic. And if it is, or a person tries, then it gets boring. You take a look at some of the emotional impact of some music, maybe in other genres. And you go, oh, what is that? Do you like it or not? The emotional impact, for example, of doing a lesson online. And I think people do that, and it's okay to do that, because there is something beyond their control that got them to start to do it online. But for me, I teach exclusively nose to nose, or in front of real people, as opposed to in front of a camera, because I feel better, and I know that the people feel better, despite the fact that they too understand that, like doing it online, for example, is the best thing at the time, to be doing. And I don't feel, this is more an economic thing, I think. I don't feel that I have to teach or I have to play. I play and teach when I want to. And it's a wonderful place to be, but absolutely doable for anybody.
You brought your baritone.
I did.
To the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about liking the low and slow, mellow sound.
Uh-huh.
When did you first kind of become aware of baritone and that side of your needs for expression?
I was always a low and mellow person, as opposed to high and bright. And so, for example, for that reason, I've always played low G ukes. And at some point in my ukulele being, I think probably was about 25 years ago, I started to think about how can I get this tenor uke to sound mellower. And by the way, I think I found a solution, and that solution is to extend the scale length by about 2 inches. If you do that on an ukulele, extend the scale, it's about 2 inches, and use the same strings will be very, very tight. So in order to ease that situation, basically what I did was down-tune the uke to B flat tuning instead of C6 tuning. Tune it down a full step. And what that did was that instrument, and that scale length was about 19, as opposed to normal 17-inch scale of a tenor uke. But at about 19 inches, based on what the builder wants to do, and down tuning it to B flat, got this incredibly wonderful sound. And so that instrument, in terms of its sound and its dimensions, is almost exactly between a tenor and a baritone uke. So once we got there and played that uke and loved it, for a while I was thinking, okay, this is going to be uke of choice. The problem is when being tuned in B flat 6, when I played with other people, made it tough on me and impossible for them. So I decided, okay, the next step thing then is a baritone. And not too many people play baritone, so I decided this is perfect. And I played, and so now, I play a baritone. When I moved to Kauai about 2 years ago, eventually I've made a friend who's a bass player up there. So he and I have gotten together. He loves the uke bass. So he and I have formed a duet of just the uke bass and a baritone. And the sound, at least is to me, is an incredible sound. And both instruments are the lowest and the mellowest you can get in their class for what they are. And so the answer basically to the question is one of preference. I've always preferred low and mellow. But one of the things that kept me there is I've played a lot of solo ukulele as opposed to trying to play in a group. And the reason for that, it gives me a lot of latitude, to do what I want when I want, because generally I don't have to coordinate with other people to come to a rehearsal. And in addition to that, the tenor uke, the higher and brighter you get, and it's not as if you run out of good sound, because you just don't. But to me and my ears, a lower and mellower sound strengthens the bass. Because one reason why I've always tried to play solo is that's all people hear, just one ukulele. And so it made it easier for me when I teach, to play just one sound, because it's easier for people to comprehend what you're trying to do.
And so are you teaching with the baritone?
Yes, but I'm still learning because I tell people, hey, and I think it's a good learning thing, hey, don't be looking at my left hand. And I'll tell them why. And then you know who violates that the most? Me. because I forget sometimes when I strum and make noise. I gotta be up. And then I also use the baritone. I like to use the baritone for chords and things that they look at, because the fretboard's bigger. But it's a little bit tough. So the other thing I did was starting to do some baritone workshops. For some reason, I'm not too sure what it is, a lot of people really get hung up on the difference in tuning between a baritone and tenor. They say, okay, so you use this for a tenor ukulele, and if you want to play this chord on a baritone ukulele, first you go to the tenor ukulele, and this is what it looks like. Then if you take it down here, it's not the same chord, so you got to take it up to that fifth fret, and oh man, that's just so complicated. So I tell people, and a lot of the things in my teaching has to do with sound and not names of chords. In some of the workshops that I do, like in teaching people some progressions, for example, in somewhat jazzy progressions, I don't tell them the names of chords. And the thing that keeps me there is I don't know the names of those chords, but I know what sound I'm after. And so that's what I do. So the specific answer to your question is, I'm starting to do more baritone workshops because people are more and more becoming interested in that. As a result of that, what I've done and worked with builders on baritone ukes is, as best they can, to remove what I call the muddiness in chords on baritones played, especially on like the first three frets, because it's so low and gravel. It's, when you get down there and play a chord, like it's not defined too well. And so I work with builders on that, so that they pick their combinations of woods and the way they like to construct the instrument, so that it removes as much of that gravelly muddiness as possible. But the sound of the baritone, it's a beautiful, beautiful sound.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you find that is teaching folks who are very used to, in the ukulele world, having a handout, having things shown specifically for them? Is it kind of pulling teeth to get them on your page where you're just using sounds in the lesson? How do you make them comfortable with that idea?
That's a good question. And I'll answer that by telling you about something that happened just in this class that I just did. Because they were asking for handouts. And I said, the very best way to learn a chord is to diagram that chord yourself. You put the dots on it immediately. They did that. And it took some time, and it takes time, from the situation. But I generally don't have a whole lot of handouts when I teach. I like to keep people strumming.
And so how do you get in their heads and get them seeing how their sound matches your sound if you're playing something different? Or are you always playing up past the 5th fret when you're teaching GCEA players? You know what I'm saying?
Are you saying that they're playing tenors and I'm playing a baritone?
Right. How do you get them over that hump of understanding that the sound is the sound, and so that they're comfortable playing their chords and you're maybe playing your chords?
When I first of all, I try not to play with the class.
Okay.
Because when I do, they will look at my left hand, okay, or try and do everything that I'm doing. And so that's one of the reasons why sometimes I play a baritone. And I'm telling you, it's just not going to happen. The other thing is I don't prefer a technique where I play along with the students because they're watching me. And I've seen instances where the teacher plays with the students, and more often than not, the only ukulele the teacher hears is his or hers. And then when they're done, the teacher goes, "Great job." Didn't hear a thing. And so that's the reason why, as much as I can, I get the people to play, and to play by themselves and not me. If I play to them, I'll just have them not play, and I'll play something for them, and then ask them to play it. And if it's right, then we keep going. But I never tell them, "Oh, okay, are you ready? Go." we're both playing now. We don't do that.
Wow. Okay, that's wonderful. And it forces them to fill in the blanks.
But what it means is that you have to get them set up to do that. And sometimes if you don't get them set up to do that, they'll get all screwed up. And then if that happens, you lose their attention. It's tough sometimes to keep people's attention in ukulele.
Well, I think it speaks to your skill as a teacher and being able to navigate the classroom, that you're able to do that. That was kind of the first thing I noticed the other day when I sat in on your classes. Oh, there's no ukulele. He's not playing along with them, and you're expecting them to hold up their end of the bargain. And I think I was very impressed and inspired to see that.
The really wonderful thing about that is that if you push people, they will respond positively, and it's almost like they expect or they want to be pushed, because a lot of I shouldn't say a lot. Some teachers that I know of, they try and baby that audience through something. I don't. But I constantly tell them, you know what? The ukulele is easy to learn to play, because I want them to believe that. Because I also tell them there is nothing about ukulele that is difficult to learn if they do nothing more than break things down to the lowest common denominator. And I tell them that, and I get puzzled looks. But I tell them again, and I still get puzzled looks. But the degree to which I keep telling them is the degree to which they begin to believe it, because I'm showing them on the ukulele. As opposed to just play at them without realizing that they don't know what you're doing. And because if you're in exchange with the class, and what the teacher is doing is trying to make objective sense, which is easy to do, but the people get nothing from that. It doesn't mean that the people don't enjoy it, because sometimes people will go to a lesson just to feel good about what the teacher is talking about. But whether or not they can play it, they don't care. So what the teacher has to do, either beforehand as much as you can, or at the beginning of the session, is to go in and say, okay, what the hell's going on in here? And that's not hard to do. That's not hard to do. I'll get in a session and I say, and I'm serious, how many of you are scared? Some hands will go up. I said, you know, if I were you, I'd be scared too. But I always tell them, I got good news, and you need to unscare yourself. Because when you unscare yourself and remove as much angst as you can, then your mind and your heart open. And as a teacher, if you can do nothing more than get them there to open, and it's not difficult. You need to respect them more than you respect your abilities as a teacher or player. Okay, next.
Is there anything that you want to share that you're especially excited about these days that we could add on top? I feel like that is a nice chunk of very strong mana'o you have dropped.
I really respect and appreciate ukulele for what it means to me and what I think it means to other people. Because to me, the ukulele is the catalyst. It is not the end. It is the means to the end. So what is the end then? For me, it's about appreciating how the ukulele permits guys like us who are not necessarily professional musicians, guys or people like the people who come here, who have an intense interest in music, in ukulele, guitar, or whatever, and are able to easily and with fun participate in the process of making music. What we need to do as teachers is make it as easy as possible for them to continue to enjoy making music. Because, one aspect of music, and it's very important, is what I would call serious entertainment. Very, very professional people with worldwide repertoires, and, there are lots of them. But as we sometimes go to concerts to listen to people play at us, and even go to ukulele concerts to listen to ukulele players strum at us, there's also a very, very deep appreciation amongst people about how ukulele permits them to easily participate in the process of making music. And in the course of doing that, when people feel good about making music, it applies readily to the science of music therapy, which addresses why and how people feel good. That's the reason why I do a separate class in emotion. And the class that you popped in on, that exercise I did when I did the clapping exercise? I love that, and that's one of my favorite things to do. But the reason why I continue to do it is that as we do, the way I control the clapping is to control the emotion. All right, make this sound sad, and they'll do it, and you don't even have to count them in nothing. They'll do it. All right, make this sound happy, and they'll do that too. It's incredible. And I would highly recommend that exercise to you. Sometimes we can talk about that, because I promise you the first couple times you'll be scared shitless. I'm like, oh shit, what if it doesn't work?
Right.
And I've tried that with like 30, 40 people. Works just the same.
And it's never not worked.
It's never not worked.
That's too cool.
It's never not worked. So sometime if you like, we can talk about that and how to do it. I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the meantime, where can people find you or get in touch? It's the best way they can support you.
You know, that's a good question because not too long after I retired, threw away all the business cards and started to build what I called my retirement regimen. And I gladly give out my contact information, but not through business cards or whatever. I say, send me an email or give me a call, because it's real easy to give anybody my email or phone number. And I'm glad to do that, but that's it. I don't hand out cards. I'm not trying to get famous anymore, because that's at this point that would make me too busy.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Uncle.
Oh, you're sure welcome. You're sure welcome. This is fun.
So how's that? I absolutely loved hearing all of those things from Uncle Kimo. I had a really wonderful time and appreciate his time and his willingness to share. You know, some folks, sometimes it's hard to get on the same page and like, yeah, I want to interview you. I want to talk story, and, you know, low pressure. We can just talk about whatever, but it just kind of never happens. But Uncle Kimo was like, yes, we're doing it. That sounds great. You know, we made a time and boom, I'll be there. And then we actually ended up having another sit down session. I still have to review that and see if that's something that is a good fit for the podcast. We'll see. Stay tuned. But just a real treat. So just want to mahalo Uncle Kimo for his time and his expertise and his knowledge and willingness to share. It was a real treat, and hope you folks enjoyed as much as I did. If you enjoy the podcast, you should certainly subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, just so you can stay up to date, see when new episodes come down the tubes, first and third Saturdays of every month, except for November, December. I always take a holiday break to kind of recalibrate, get re-inspired. So, yeah, end of October, the birthday episode will be the last one of the series, but we got a couple months left. I got some things in the hopper, got some ideas, you know, staying stoked, staying inspired, all that good stuff. We've got an interview with my band coming up. The band has been working on recording some stuff. We tracked the live tracks here in the studio last month, I guess it was, and we're going to actually start vocal dubs tomorrow as I'm recording this. So we'll go in and we'll sing over the top of the live tracks that we put down. Should be good fun. They're great guys, and they all have a shared experience going through Gary Washburn's music program here in Honoka at the high school. So looking forward to hearing stories from that. And I think it'll be interesting to talk about, you know, how we as musicians work together and maybe what their perception of an ukulele player's role is. Because I'm the only ukulele player in the band. Ryan also plays ukulele, but he's been on guitar for the past few years that we've been playing together. And so I think it'll just be an interesting conversation. And just love all the guys very dearly. And, you know, we play music, we're a band, but most of all, we just like hanging out. So it'll be a good time. Looking forward to bringing you that. And of course, whatever kind of monologue stuff I come up with in the meantime. Thanks for being here. If you want to support the cause, you can become a supporting member of liveukulele.com. That helps to offset all of the time that I put into these free resources. You can find out more about that by checking out the link in the podcast description. While you're down there, there's a bunch of other cool links too. Check it out. You know, follow your way down the rabbit hole, see what there is to offer. There's something for everybody. I'll catch you next time, and don't forget that Zoom workshop on solo arranging, August 24th. More info via the link. I'll see you next time. Keep on jamming out there. Be well. Ahui ho.